beneath the hush of golden dawn, where the wind still remembers prayers from forgotten kings. I found a silence dressed in light, and it had the shape of her eyes. They were not eyes, they were verdicts. They spoke in the language of surrender and storm, turning every heart that dared to look into a kingdom trembling before its own throne. Her gaze did not burn, it crowned. It crowned the soul in fevered wonder, and the empires within me, all proud, all unbent, bent softly, like sand under the whisper of rain. Every conqueror dreams of a world to claim, but when her eyes opened, the world itself became her servant. Mountains lowered their peaks, oceans quieted their pulse, and the stars paused mid-glow, as if they too were waiting for her permission to shine. She did not command. Her silence was the empire. Her stillness was the law, and the sun, that old sovereign of light, hesitated upon the edge of morning, for even he knew he rises only after her gaze allows it. There is something eternal in the way she looks. Not eternal as time is, but as truth is. The kind of forever that does not pass. Only waits, only witnesses, only reigns. I remember the first time her glance brushed mine. I, who had walked through wars of flame and gold, who had spoken to thunder as an equal, felt my knees give way before a single unspoken word. Her eyes were two mirrors of the impossible, showing not who I was, but who I could never become without her. In their depths, kingdoms fell not to swords, but to softness. And in that softness, I saw destiny rewrite its script. I called her gaze a miracle, but miracles are loud. Her eyes were quiet, the kind of quiet that humbles miracles into listening. Even angels who are made of worship paused their wings mid-beat. Even the moon dimmed her silver and whispered to the dark, "Let her pass, for her glance is the scripture of light." There are deserts that remember her steps, sands that still shimmer with her breath, as if her eyes once told the wind a secret, too sacred to forget. I have seen crowns of gold and crowns of fire, but none as divine as the one her pupils wear. A crown forged not by hand, but by the universe itself, when it bowed to beauty. She walks through hearts like dusk through palaces, soft, unstoppable, eternal. And wherever her gaze falls, pride becomes prayer. There was a night when all the stars gathered, not to shine, but to watch. They watched as her eyes opened, and light itself remembered what it was born for. Some say her eyes hold sorrow. But if sorrow it is, then it is royal. The sorrow of queens who know that even pain bends to grace. The oceans kneel not because they are weak, but because they recognize their reflection. In her gaze lies the same infinity, a depth no sailor can map, no poet can name. She is not a woman, she is the horizon's confession, the edge where day bows to night, where empires kneel to forgiveness. And I, who once believed I ruled my heart, found myself a humble subject in the court of her glance. For where her eyes rest, power becomes peace. Sometimes I think she carries the memory of the first dawn, the one that saw creation take its breath. Her eyes are that breath, light turning human, divinity turning intimate. There are no thrones in her world, only altars, and love upon seeing her changes its name to devotion. When she smiles, the stars adjust their rhythm. When she looks away, the sky forgets its direction. She is the compass of all that dreams. Her eyes could have ruled through fear, but they chose tenderness. They could have destroyed, but they chose mercy. And in that mercy, the proudest souls found freedom. The poets call her beloved. The kings call her fate. But the truth is simpler. She is the silence where everything kneels to be forgiven. Sometimes I imagine history itself watching her. Scrolls unrolling, timelines pausing, as if every story waits to be rewritten in the ink of her gaze. If ever you see her eyes in a dream, do not wake. Dreams are built to contain what daylight cannot bear. She does not need to speak. Language was invented for those without eyes like hers. Her glance is grammar, her silence a verse. Empires are proud things. They do not kneel easily, but even pride must surrender when it meets its reflection in perfection. And her eyes, oh, her eyes, were the mirror where empires saw themselves mortal. I once saw a general drop his sword, a poet forget his words, a priest forget his prayer, all because her eyes turned their way. They are not eyes. They are the dawn after creation, the light before the sun, the promise that the universe keeps whispering to itself. Each glance she gives writes a verse in the book of existence, and even silence turns holy beneath her look. The sands remember her footsteps. The wind hums her name. Even time, the great emperor, moves slower in her presence, as though afraid to age beauty. And I, the wanderer of deserts, the child of crowns and storms, found my final home in the cathedral of her eyes. There are wars that end with peace, and there are wars that end with surrender. But her eyes bring neither. They bring transformation. What was iron becomes gold. What was king becomes worshiper. Sometimes I think God wrote her eyes on the seventh day, when he was done creating everything else, and wanted to remind himself why he began.